Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Jerred Moon. The Garage Gym Athlete Podcast is a result of my desire to build better humans, unequivocal coaches, and autonomous athletes. I've spent the last several years obsessing over program design, nutrition, and every other way you can optimize human performance. This podcast distills the latest scientific research with what I've learned and blends it with the not-so-scientific field of mental toughness. We are here to build you into a dangerously effective athlete. If you enjoy this podcast, you can find out more about our training at garagegymathlete.com. And if you want to pursue more into the field of coaching and programming, head to endof3fitness.com. Thanks for listening. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. I am here with Ashley Hicks and Kyle Schrum.
Oh, I guess we don't need your name anymore, right?
I just tried to gloss right over it.
I am.
People are going to have to use context clues. The coach formerly known as Jerred Moon.
Oh, no.
I'm changing my name to the concurrent training symbol that we have created. That'll be my name. You can refer to me as that.
I'm going to need your pronouns.
Right. Yeah. Let me think about it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. We are going over some fun study today. So I was going to say studies, but it's really just one about social media usage and how that can either help or hinder your training. You have to stick around to find out.
Dun, dun, dun.
And we'll get into a topic, very interesting topic about a new device, a weight loss device that is
don't give it away.
Basically wiring your jaw shut.
Or give it away.
We're going to get into it. No, you have to. I had to tell people what that one is, so you'll make it to the middle and hear about this thing if you think we're kidding. I had to do a lot of research to find out if this thing was a joke. Like, that was hard for me. I was like, am I getting punked here? Like, is this not a real thing? And as far as I can tell, it is. If someone knows something I don't, let us know, let the team know, because we all think it's real. And it seems very real. And anyway, it doesn't matter. And then we'll get into a workout backbone that really sucks. And so let's get into it. I think we all, not all, but a lot of people probably use social media on a regular basis. I know we all do. It's part of the job to some degree to at least get into the Facebook group and answer questions and help people out. And I think that there's a lot of good with social media, but there's also a lot of bad with social media. And I think it depends on the person and how you attack it and how you feel about it and how you curate your own experience. But the study that we're looking at today is mental fatigue from smartphone use reduces volume, load, and resistance training, a randomized, single-blinded crossover study. And so the purpose of the study was to examine if 30 minutes of smartphone-based social media use affected mental fatigue, squat performance, motivation to train, perception of effort, and blood lactate in recreationally trained men and women. So there were 16 recreationally trained men and women who participated. And the researchers hypothesized that pre-training social media use would increase mental fatigue, perception of effort, and blood lactate while decreasing squat volume and motivation to train versus the control condition. So they had, I think, 4 total sessions that they had to come work out on a Smith machine. They were doing Smith machine squats for 15 rep max, which might as well be like a 1,000 rep max of a back squat. So it was, it is what it is. They used what they had to keep things controlled. I won't give them too much of a hard time on the Smith machine thing, but the only difference between the conditions there was a phone condition where they had to spend 30 minutes of continuous activity engaging in social media networks, either Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or something like that through smartphone apps. And the other group would only do a documentary. It was like NASA. It was very specific. It was like NASA, season 1, episode 5 of
NASA. Yeah.
There you go. And so anyway, I thought that was pretty interesting. You either watched a documentary and you watched or you participated in social media, used social media for 30 minutes before a training session. And that's the basics of the study. And then they just looked at a bunch of different parameters, which we can get into as far as performance. But if I have this correct, everyone served as their own control, right? People did both. And so it wasn't necessarily two groups. It was just a condition. And even the researchers were blinded to the conditions. So they didn't know who was doing what. Anyway, we'll get into it. So we did a study not that long ago on how mental fatigue reduced squat total volume by 15.8%. I also put that in my Killing Comfort book because it just talks about mental fatigue and how it can screw up your training. But they were doing a Stroop test in that study, which is whatever isn't that the one where you say the color, but it's a word and and you have to switch back and forth, and it's just mentally demanding. This is very real world with getting into just using social media for 30 minutes before you hit a training session. And we can get into some of the results, but I don't think people will be surprised to find out that social media pre-training is not a good thing. So what did you two think of this study?
So again, mental fatigue was more when you used social media. At first, to me, they tested it was 3 sets at 80% to failure before they either looked at social media or the documentary, and then they the 30 minutes waited and then did it again. So at first I was like, well, wouldn't they be, taxed to begin with, because they just did the 3 sets to failure prior to, but then you looked at the results and social media was significantly more. Their volume decreased and they weren't able to get in as many reps too as the people who were just watching the NASA documentary. They couldn't do the thing that I thought that was interesting, they couldn't do any other activity the 3 hours prior. And so I just was wondering, were they meditating? Maybe they could read a book or something, but they were trying to avoid them from looking at other things. So that way they weren't mentally fatigued 3 hours prior. So it just makes me wonder what each of those athletes did. I don't know. I'm just well, what would I choose to do? Probably read, but I don't know if that's considered mentally taxing.
They listened to the Garage Gym Athlete podcast.
If they were smart.
Sure.
Or
that's
just
a cognitive task.
That's true.
That is a cognitive task.
Not allowed.
No, you can definitely listen to Garage Gym Athlete pre-training and it will only increase your performance.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Just want to state the science on that one.
So my little Killing Comfort is, if that's okay, if I give it right away.
Go for it. Yeah.
I just said, don't bring your phone into your workout session. Jerred and I have talked about this. We both have journals from years past. Yes, I have my stuff on Team Builder, but one of my favorite things to do is Sunday night it's Sunday night or Sunday morning, whenever the workouts drop, I bring my journal and I literally write out my workouts for the week. What am I doing? And then that is what I bring into my workout session. Now, obviously, if you have to use your phone for tunes, totally get it. Set it on silent mode. You can still do that or have it do not disturb you while you are working out. So that way you don't get text messages. That's what I love about, I think, the Apple Watch, and I think your phone, if you're doing your Apple Watch, I don't know how Garmin works with you, but it sets everything to silent. So I don't get any notifications while I'm working out. And I really enjoy that, because to me, if it's going to tax you beforehand, right? If it's going to do that, what's it doing in the middle if you're using it in between sets? I see a lot of people, if you go to a Globo gym or whatever. So when I'm traveling and I go to different gyms, that's the one I see people do their sets, get done immediately on their phone, and then getting back and then doing that again. So it's well, the science is showing that it's actually hindering your training like beforehand, it's probably doing the same thing in the middle of your training. So, Kyle.
So I think this is just kind of a comment on just the way that we live today, of just kind of being distracted all the time. And I think having been in ministry and stuff, we talk about social media use a lot, just because, for different reasons than we're talking about now, but not totally different reasons, because this mental fatigue that we're talking about that social media was causing in this study, it's not just related to training. Like that social media use was causing mental fatigue, regardless of what you were going to be doing afterwards. You know what I mean? So like, if you're going to be training afterwards, then you're going to be dealing with the fatigue there. If you're going to be working afterwards, if you're going to be interacting with other people afterwards, spending time with your family, whatever, like you're draining your mental acuity for whatever task is coming next. And so I just think that's something that we have to keep in mind. And it's not just related to training, it's related to just life in general. And so, there's not really a whole lot more, to take from the study here. It's like, it was a significant difference. There was a significant drop from people who were using the social media versus people who were watching a documentary. Maybe some people listening are like, man, if I had to watch a documentary before training, I would be like, just wiped, like, no, thank you, but it was significant. And I think most documentaries are probably going to make you think a little bit, whether even if you're like thinking about ways to disagree with what you see, you know what I mean? You're still going to be thinking a little bit. And social media, it's just kind of mindless. And so you're just kind of whatever. But I would just say, just set some boundaries for that, just in your general life, not just the way that it relates to training, because we're talking about making better humans, right? And one way that we make better humans here is through training. But we talk about all this other stuff because it relates to being a human being. And I think that's the biggest thing that this study pointed out to me, was this is just a comment on how human beings function today. Is we actively engage in something that's mentally fatiguing us and making us perform worse on the things that we actually need to be doing. So I think that's the biggest thing that I took away from it.
I will say, I thought about too, when you talked about your whole social media and like documentary thing. For me, if I'm watching like let's say, Secrets of NASA, it's a documentary, I may not have too much interest in it, so I may be able to zone easier, versus I feel like social media, the whole point of it is to like engage you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're scrolling and you find something that you like. And so I don't know, like the differences between that, like, it'd be cool if you could like see like what parts of the brain lights up or whatnot. I know they talk about like dopamine hits when you see the likes and stuff like that, and the different colors. Yeah, anyways.
Well, this relates to your training because and this is what we talk about pretty much every podcast, and just what we talk about in everything that we do. You need to be engaged with your training session. You know what I mean? You
Right.
need to be mindful. You need to be intentional. You need to be moving with intention. You need to be thinking about what it is that you're doing. We've covered studies on that as well, of just, are you bringing the intensity? You know what I mean? Are you bringing the intensity to your training session? Or are you just kind of, moving through it, going through the motions, and, some days it's a day to kind of go through the motions. You've got other things that have happened to you that day, and you need to get the training done. But to get the most out of your training, you need to be mindful and you need to be moving intentionally. And so this is, it's not just about, oh, well, don't be scrolling through your phone. It's like, no, it's actually going to hinder your training, because you won't be as mentally acute, and you won't be paying attention, and you won't be as intentional with your movements. And so it's going to impair you.
Totally agree.
Yeah, I think this study led to more questions than it did answers for me, because we got 30 minutes of continuous activity engaging in social media networks before training, and it made your training worse, right? See, velocity and power decreased, RPE increased, so you just feel like the training session is harder than it was previously. and you are actually affecting velocity and your power. But other things that weren't affected, heart rate variability, perceived recovery, and blood lactate were not different between conditions at the time points tested. I think that part is maybe good news, because what's not happening is there's not like the internal health problems or physiological issues with social media. That would be more alarming, right? It's like your heart rate variability was suppressed and you can't recover, blood lactate increased. If these like blood markers and actual like cardiovascular markers were suppressed, or that would be way worse. So it goes a lot into just this mental fatigue state. But then the questions that pop up for me is, okay, but what if, like, why does social media mentally fatigue someone? And that's the bigger question, because there's so many different things. Like, I think the researchers were trying not to figure out what you were doing. Like, they weren't recording any of that data, because how someone uses social media, I guess, is supposed to be private, which is hilarious, because Facebook knows like every single swipe that you do, from like what you like to how long you look at a picture and like all these things. But the researchers, didn't want to go into that. But I think that matters, because I think how you use social media is very important. And I think it can be negative and draining for some people. And I think that's for a lot of people. I hear that. And that's why I always encourage people to curate their own experience. Like, if you're following someone on Instagram and they post about something that makes you jealous or makes you feel worse about yourself or whatever, I don't care if they're your friend from 5 years ago or your friend of today, stop following them. Like, unfollow the person. And same with all the Facebook stuff and Instagram, everything is like, you need to curate a better experience, because social media is not going anywhere. But there are a lot of problems with it. And I don't think abstinence is always the answer to a problem. Like, oh, well, I just don't do social media, I'm going to not do that. And I don't think I feel like that shows a lack of self-discipline, of self-control. So that I want more answers about what specifically, why social media was more mentally demanding than a documentary. Because if you did ask me before I read this study, which one is more mentally demanding, I don't know what I would have said, but I would have leaned to them either at least being equal, or possibly even the documentary being more mentally taxing if I was actually trying to think and learn, because I don't learn shit from social media, but I do learn a lot from a documentary. And so I don't know, see how many questions I have with no answers. It's just, this is where it leads me, because I'm just like curious. Ultimately, the big takeaway is, yeah, you probably shouldn't use your phone as a pre-workout supplement, right? That it seems like that's going to affect things. But I also wonder if you're using social media in a more positive way, if it wouldn't have had the same effect. But I don't think most people use social media in a positive way. So I think it's all negative.
Especially like right now with everybody's, I feel like mental health is like a huge thing that's going on right now because of Corona and just, again, the usage of social media. But going back from my experience, when I had postpartum depression, I could not look at Instagram or Facebook or anything. And it had nothing to do with like comparing myself. I don't know what it was, but it was a bad trigger. And so I just knew I couldn't do that. But if I needed to just brain dump, like I could watch, it's not a documentary, but like Star Trek. Star Trek was like our go-to show. And I could just sit there and kind of engage and engage makes me think of Picard. Anyways, I don't know. So I don't know what the difference is of like what does it do? Again, I would want to like have those little, they have all these studies of like what lights up and what your brain does when you're doing stuff. I would really like something like that shows like what social media is really doing to you mentally, I guess. And not just the whole comparison thing. Like, why does it hook you in so bad?
That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think I use social media in a negative way at all.
Right.
But I used to. Like, I feel like I used to have those tendencies, but I did what I said. I like curated my experience, unfriend, unfollow, what anyone who the slightest bit of I don't like that. I'm gonna get rid of it. Like I just cutthroat with all that stuff. And now I get on Instagram and I only see things that I like to see, you know?
Mhm.
And also, I don't know if I ever spend a straight 30-minute time period on a social media network.
Right.
I do check Facebook, and that's primarily for Garage Gym Athlete stuff. I check it frequently, but I don't sit in the group for 30 straight minutes, doing stuff. And then same with like Instagram. I don't think I'm on the platform for 30 straight minutes. I might accumulate that much time over the course of the day, but it's normally like check, move on, and so I think how people use social media is the biggest thing. And if you want to just sit down at the end of the day and like spend 30 minutes to an hour on social media and it has no repercussions mentally for you, then I don't see a problem with that. Like, go for it. I don't see it's like no different than watching TV or anything else. You don't have anything mentally demanding left to do in the day, and that's the last thing you do. I don't really care. But I think the bigger issue might be just the smartphone in general, and not even the social media. Because I started using, you guys know, a dumb phone on the weekends. I have a weekend phone that can't do anything, and text messaging on it even sucks.
Be nice to it.
It's a dumb phone. I mean, it can't do anything, and
it gives you
that's
maps.
fine. That's
you bought it.
No, it doesn't have maps. They keep saying maps is coming, and maps is not there. They lied. So I can do nothing on it except for you can text me, and then I'll either text you like 1 or 2 words, or I'll call you because texting on it is awful. But if you want a complete break from your smartphone, you can do that. And I do know that when I first started my first like 1 to 2 weekends, it did feel weird, which I didn't like that it felt weird. Right. Now it's just normal. It's like I will actually. It's funny because if like we go somewhere on the weekend, I'll have my weekend phone, and like how when you sit somewhere, like maybe take your car for an oil change, I'm just staring at the wall, and because this phone can entertain you for 16 seconds. I can only check the settings so many times. I'm like, yeah, what's the ringer volume at? Because that's like all it can do. And then I'm done looking at that thing. It doesn't do anything. It's not even in color. But it's great because it's a good break on the weekends. So if you want to do something like that, you could. But overall, I think the big takeaway here is, I just recently had a post on Instagram about social media usage, and I think it's fine, or phone usage in general, but you have to set your rules around it. And I think that's the biggest thing is, if you're checking Instagram in between sets, and I do this too, not Instagram, but Slack. Like if one of you message me, I'm like, it's a 50-50 shot that you're going to get a hold of me. Some days I'm like, I'm not checking the phone today while I'm training. And then other days, like I might get a message and I'll tell you that I'm training and I'll get back to you. But really I shouldn't even look at it in the first place. And so these things are intrusive and there have to be rules around it. So I think no pre-training, no or during the workout, but also this, I think, goes a little bit further. If social media is proving to be mentally fatiguing and you have any sort of job that demands mental attention, you just need to be thinking about these things. Maybe you're about to take an exam, maybe you're about to fly an airplane, whatever you're about to do, maybe stay away from social media right before, right? So I know we have some surgeons who listen to the podcast. Come on, guys, no social media pre-surgery.
Please, God.
Their life is in your hands. So yeah, I think that's my biggest takeaway. Did you guys have anything else on this one? It's a pretty interesting study, very real world, and they don't normally get this real world, but this one is very real world.
What was your kill comfort?
Yeah, my kill comfort is the rules. Sorry, I kind of like mentioned it. I think it's hard because we feel like we're adults. We can basically do whatever the hell we want so long as we don't infringe on someone else's freedom. That's how you go to jail. But we can do basically whatever we want. So we feel like I'm an adult. I can use this phone however I want. Yeah, you can eat whatever you want to. Just see how that works out, right? So that's my kill comfort, is actually set some damn rules and stick to them. So I have the weekend phone rule. I don't use it on the weekends. I keep it on grayscale most of the time unless I need to see color. I find that happens quite a bit. I'm like for work, whatever, I actually need to know what color this is. like if you guys send a picture or something like that, I'm like the context helps. So keeping it on grayscale makes your phone super boring. I do the weekend phone thing. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I mean, I just try to limit the phone usage overall, but I don't have like a number I'm shooting for or anything like that. I
You're
don't
saying
really
you
use
set a
my phone
standard?
during the day. Yeah, standard rule. So I don't use my phone during the workday. And anyone who text messages me, you now know why I don't ever respond to anything that you said, because my phone is in my desk drawer basically the whole day, except for when I go to train. I do take it with me for the music Ashley mentioned. That's the primary reason. And yeah.
We have a running joke on Slack that if you are dying, you do not call or text Jerred. You
can Slack me.
You will die. You need to call
Slack's
someone
on my
else.
computer.
Like me, but he has to be this computer for him to see it.
Yeah, it'll say that his notifications are off, and he'll see it later. I guess Ashley's on the floor. She gone.
So I'm.
You know what's funny? I was gonna say you mentioned your Apple Watch notifications shut off. So my Garmin, it can do a bunch of notifications. It doesn't. I don't allow it to notify me of anything. Like period dot. No notifications.
Oh, okay, cool.
And then the my computer, you can schedule do not disturb on Mac. My do not disturb is scheduled from 7:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. So I can't get notifications on my computer during the workday. So these are
cool.
things that I do because I'm not interested in what anyone else wants to talk about. I only really want to do what I want to do. It's not mean. It's not mean.
No, I'm just like thinking of your family. Like if there's like an emergency, does Emily have to call you twice? You know what I mean?
Emily knows how to get a hold of me. She knows. I'm not telling you the secret. She knows.
Okay.
She knows how.
Anyway.
It's a custom back signal is what it is.
Yeah.
That also shows up in the daytime. I'm going to piggyback off that a little bit and say you can also track your screen time on your phone. At least you can with Apple.
Yeah.
And it'll tell you all kinds of stuff. It'll tell you, when you're on your phone, what you were doing, what kinds of apps you were using during that time. So that's something that I try to do as well. I try to compete against myself, like to see, like it'll update me on Sunday mornings. It'll update me. Your screen time was, up or lower, than the previous week, So I try to game it out like that as well. And you can also with screen time set app limits, and you can set, do not disturb hours, and you can set bedtime hours and all that kind of stuff. Like my phone shuts down at a certain time every night, like all the apps shut down. And I have to actually like make the decision. If I want to use that app, it says ignore app limit, and you can ignore it for 15 minutes or you can ignore it for the whole day. Like you can just turn the app limit off if you want. So I have to make that decision. Like, do I want to turn the app limit off? You know what I mean? Even if it's just
have self-control.
Yeah. So it's just a little reminder of, all right, I have to make this conscious decision to turn this app limit off if I'm going to do it.
Yeah. So. You're basically hitting I suck.
Yeah.
So no offense to anybody out there, but I've done the app limit thing before, and I have that decision when it pops up. I'm like, oh, I could keep using this app, or I could hit the I suck button, or okay, yeah, I'm done with the app like I wanted to be originally.
Well, speaking of self-control, should we transition to a different?
One thing I want to talk about on the screen time thing is I get this a lot when we talk about screen time on the podcast. People are like, yeah, I have a lot of screen time, but my phone has to be on to play YouTube or like whatever. So my screen time's really high. Okay. It breaks it down by app, ladies and gentlemen. Go subtract that if you really want that accurate thing. So like, don't give me any excuses. If you're trying to limit your screen time and your YouTube's on to listen to this podcast for an hour, that's fine. Subtract the hour, or if you listen to multiple podcasts, whatever, the hours from YouTube, knowing that that's what you were doing, and then see what it is. This stuff is really easy. Like that started happening to me recently because I started using Audible's car feature. I don't know if you guys know that they have like the little the car button, and so it keeps your screen on, and so you can do like a quick 30-second rewind, or you can bookmark a spot. And my screen time shot up after I started doing that, and I was like, what did I do? And I'm on Audible too much, because if your phone is actually off and you're listening to Audible, it doesn't count towards your screen time, which is how I used to do it. And now I use that feature, so it went up. But I'm like, oh, okay, so just subtract the 45 minutes from Audible, and now I know my actual screen time for the week. So anyway, no excuses. But getting to self-control, this is insane.
Another I suck.
Yeah.
Man,
Yeah.
I don't even know what
I
to
read
say
this
about
to
it.
Scott, and I'll tell you what he said, but why don't you get
Well,
into it?
yeah, I want to read at least part of the article. This is actually a media release from the university that created this device, and I may mispronounce lots of things. I do apologize. It's University of Otago, I believe, in New Zealand. Does that sound right to you guys? Otago? Otago. Okay. The media releases researchers developed world first weight loss device. University of Otago and UK researchers have developed a world first weight loss device to help fight the global obesity epidemic. Dental Slim Diet Control is an intraoral device fitted by a dental professional to the upper and lower back teeth. It uses magnetic devices with unique custom manufactured locking bolts. It allows the wearer to open their mouth only about 2 millimeters, restricting them to a liquid diet, but it allows free speech and doesn't restrict breathing. Participants in a Dunedin-based trial lost an average of 6.36 kilograms in 2 weeks and were motivated to continue with their weight loss journey. Lead researcher, University of Otago Health Science Pro Vice Chancellor Professor Paul Brunton says the device will be an effective, safe, and affordable tool for people battling obesity. It is fitted by a dentist, can be released by the user in the case of an emergency, and can be repeatedly fitted and removed. And then he said, the main barrier for people for successful weight loss is compliance, and this helps them establish new habits, allowing them to comply with a low-calorie diet for a period of time. It really kickstarts the process. It's a non-invasive, reversible, economical, and attractive alternative to surgical procedure. The fact is, there are no adverse consequences with this device. And I'm not going to read the whole thing because it is a bit longer, but I just want to read where we're at in the obesity epidemic, because that's kind of what the article gets into after here. And it says recent studies revealed 1.9 billion adults worldwide are overweight and 650 million are obese. And being overweight or obese results in about 2.8 million deaths per year. It is estimated about 57% of the world's adult population will be overweight or obese by 2030. So this is where we're at, ladies and gentlemen. We are locking our mouths shut to prevent people from eating so we can lose weight. And apparently, if you did read the rest of the article, this came about first in the 1980s. People were surgically wiring people's jaw shut in the 80s, but there was like no way to release it. It was like once you did it, your jaw was wired shut. And then I guess if someone vomited, they would die. They would be choking on their own vomit because they couldn't open their mouth to get it out. And anyway, that sounds awful. And then I don't know if anyone actually died, but that was the biggest thing that whatever. And then also 9 to 12 months after, most patients would develop gum disease who did the jaw wiring shut version in the 1980s. And then last thing, there were continuing issues with restriction of jaw movement, and some developed acute psychiatric conditions.
Yeah.
From wiring their jaw shut. Now we're doing it in a much better way. You can open your jaw by 2 millimeters, and you have a safety device to be able to release it. All right, I'll just stop now and see what the two of you think about wiring our mouths shut to lose weight. And here's what I don't want to do. We're not going to do any fat shaming. Okay. Like that's not what I'm making sure. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the listeners. Like that's not where we're headed to this. We're not making fun of fat people in this new, like that's not what's happening right now. We are just talking more about the mental side of like where we're at and how crazy this is in the world. So I don't want anybody to be offended by what we're covering. If maybe you have a family member who just found out about this and they're considering it or whatever, like we're not getting into that. We're just getting into this is a bit crazy and our reasons for why we think that.
You can go. I went first for the study. You go first.
I don't even know where to go from here. I'll man, okay. Yeah, this one really just kind of threw me for a loop. I'm absolutely with you, Jerred. We're not here to make fun of anybody. We're not here to fat shame anyone. That's not why this podcast exists or why we're covering this at all. To me, it's just like with the social media before training and the mental fatigue. To me, this is a comment on our society. This is a comment on where we are as people, where these people, like, we know that people need help losing weight. Okay, let's wire their jaws shut so they can't eat. And it's like, no, like, people have to eat to survive. So it's like, we need to still eat. So let's throw that one out. But opening 2 millimeters, it says that it doesn't prohibit free speech. I don't understand how you can still talk if you can only open your mouth 2 millimeters. I don't even
workplace think about that,
Yeah. I mean, what do you do in a workplace when you can, you have to keep your mouth closed while you talk? Like, I don't know. There's so many other, factors of just being a human being that this would affect, you know what I mean? That I just don't understand how this is even an option for people, or how people, I'm with you. I thought this was a joke. You sent us this thing. We're like, hey, we should cover this on the podcast. I was like, is this a Babylon Bee?
Is this real?
Like, is this a joke? Like, is this satire? I don't understand. But it's still, even though it's not like actually wiring someone's, it's like 2 really strong magnets that are attached to your teeth in the back of your mouth that just clamp you shut. It's not actual wires. Like, it's still, like, if you look at this device, it looks medieval. It looks like a torture device is what it looks like to me. And it just seems to me like we as a society are kind of just moving backwards, and we're not progressing. And I don't like it. I just don't understand where this even comes from, or how it can be a legitimate option that people consider. Anyway, that's it. That's not it, but I'll stop now. Go ahead.
No, I agree with you. You don't have enough self-control, or you're not willing to maybe get the correct help. I like what you put, and you didn't talk about this, it was in your notes. You said potentially get a coach and then a therapist. If you're having like such a negative, like if food is negatively affecting you that bad, like there's also a mental side of this. For me, I have control issues. And so if I had this in my mouth and couldn't like control what was I don't know. This would
I would die.
It would cause me a panic attack. Seriously.
And I'm good at liquid diets, but if I couldn't open my mouth, I'd freak out.
Yes. Like, I would have a panic attack.
Couldn't do it. Yeah.
So what I said is, it kind of shows me like just how lazy people are, that they don't want to put in the hard work to, set the good habits that we talk about that could potentially like lead you to even more success and other good things. And you can enjoy the goodness of food and and the good taste out there. And I don't know, we're just in trouble. If we have so many people this overweight that they're, that they need to lose all control, so that way they can not be obese anymore. And just reading those statistics out loud, Jerred, like that just really put it like concrete in my mind, like how bad like this is getting. And also the thing that the article you sent us talked about is like, it was originally, I guess, meant for people who were so overweight that they couldn't have like a surgery they needed, whether that be like, I don't know, a surgery to help them, like
bariatric surgery.
Right. Or like maybe it was, something for heart surgery or something they needed, but they were so overweight they couldn't do it. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I even see that as a reason for this as well. Like, you could potentially go on a broth smoothie diet or something like that if you needed to, or, I don't know.
I mean, that's ultimately what's crazy about it, is because this doesn't change anything about the the strategy is going on a liquid diet. So either consuming fruit and vegetable juices or smoothies or broth, like you're saying. You can do all that without wiring your mouth shut. That's the problem here. That's the craziest thing about it is you could do this without it, but the self-control has gotten so out of control that this is a solution, an actual solution. We'll see if it catches on too. I don't know. Hopefully it doesn't. I want to win for the human column here, and this doesn't catch on. I hope it fails. And I'm sorry, the inventor.
For sure. I feel like too, as like someone who's worked in the dental world before, like if you wire your mouth shut and if anything goes wrong or like you have anxiety or something like that, I feel like you're going to grind the bejesus out of your teeth. Like I can just imagine like these people are just going to, I don't know, like you couldn't even get a mouth guard in your mouth with 2 millimeters of space. So anyways, there's a lot of things that can go wrong.
There's so many things here. Like we talk about, and we've talked about even recently, we talked about one of the first things that we hear at Gratium Athlete when we're coaching somebody, especially coaching on nutrition. One of the first things that we talk about is like, let's talk about your liquid calories. You know what I mean? Right. It's like there are things that you're drinking, there are calories that you're drinking that are keeping you from losing weight. You know what I mean?
Right.
But now we're gonna wire people's mouths shut, clamp people's mouths shut, where they have to ingest all of their calories in liquid form. And so I'm like, okay, that's
I would hope that they were doing it how I would say, and not like the
Dr.
Coca-Cola
Pepper
diet.
Yeah.
and then it reported the study which I want to like, I really feel sorry for people who honestly feel genuine pity for people who are in such a mental state where they would volunteer for this experimental treatment of, or would consider this as something to help them with their problem, because this is really going to cause more issues in my opinion. But the people that they cited, as they did a study with this to see if it would actually help people lose weight. Okay. So they did 2 weeks with this thing clamping their mouth shut, and I lost 6.3 kilograms, which for those of us not on the metric system, that's about 14 pounds. They lost 14 pounds in 2 weeks. Okay. That sounds really great for somebody who needs to lose a lot of weight. But for me as a coach, I cringe when I hear that because I'm like, that doesn't sound sustainable. I really don't think you can keep that up, losing 7 pounds per week for a long time. Like as soon as you take that device off, how quickly my guess is, or the thing that I'm trying to figure out is how quickly is that weight going to come back as soon as you take that device off? Are you just going to wear it for the rest of your life and drink smoothies the rest of your life? You know what I mean? So it's just like all of these other things that we talk about as coaches as well, of what are strategies that we can use to help people just live a better life, just make better choices, as opposed to taking an easy route. You know what I mean? And I just kind of hate that these people are just like touting this as, oh, it's affordable. Oh, it's, you're not paying $24,000 for a surgery. It's like, it's a dental procedure. Those are still not, incredibly cheap, but let's talk about all of the other things that come with that. It's just, what amount of money is affordable enough to bring all of these other negatives that are going to come along with this and not actually see sustainable change. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's what this professor, he was like at the end of the study, I can't see where he quoted it, but he was like, at the end, everyone lost all this weight, and where it was. And we're motivated to continue with their weight loss journey. So that was probably just a questionnaire at the end of the study. It was like, all right, you've lost 14, 15 pounds. Congratulations. Now fill out this questionnaire. Are you motivated to keep losing weight? And they're like, yes. And that's all he's got for the continuation of the removal of this device and what people are going to do after the fact. He also goes on to say, this teaches, helps them with compliance and establishing new habits. No, sir. What kind of habits are we creating here? You've only created the habit of locking your jaw shut and having someone else hit the easy button for you when it's hard. That's all this has done. So the device is absolute trash. Won't do anything for the weight loss world, because at the end of the day, it has to go back to behavior change. I mean, if you just look at studies on people who've lost a lot of weight, they almost always gain it back. And I'm not trying to discourage anyone, but the reason that happens is if you did it too aggressively, you did it in a crazy way, you did it in a way that wasn't your choice, through just lifestyle habits and decent diet changes, it's going to come back. Mm-hmm. And it will always come back. And it will come back after you use this device. You will just think about how hard that is too. Okay. Like, I feel like I could not do this. I like doing hard things. For this, I'm like, no, I don't even want to try. Like, I don't even want to experiment with that. But people are willing to do, this is a hard thing, but they're willing to do it for the result. But there are a lot other easier hard things, like just moving a little bit more, eating a little bit less. So this was eye-opening to me, because I guess as a person who is not obese and never really has been, I do not understand the mental state that people are in to want to make a decision like this. So that is overall alarming for me. And then my big takeaway, I wrote this in Killing Comfort, and I talk about comfort being this baby lion. And it's like, it's all cute and it's cuddly. And you're like, yeah, I'm just sitting in the chair today. I'm watching on Netflix. Like, I had a hard day, and it's fine, right? Comfort, all these comfort decisions start as this tiny little baby lion. But the more comfortable decisions you make, that baby lion turns into an adult lion. And this lion is one hell of a beast that you cannot get rid of. You can't feed it enough anymore. It just wants to kill you. And for you to actually be able to kill it is very, very, very difficult, because it's a giant lion. I don't want to get too lost in the metaphor here, but I see it in people. When you've made the easy decisions for decades, you have like a herd of lions that you have to kill to be able to get back. So if we can keep our comfort, because we are going to make comfortable decisions every day, but if we can keep it to like baby lion status, where I can still just slap the thing and, get it to stop growling at me or whatever, you're okay. You're in a comfort zone where you've selected enough comfort to where it's okay. But when you get into this, you've made so many comfortable decisions. You're inside of a lion's den. You're never going to get out of it. And the only way to get out of it is going to be inch by inch of hard decisions. And that's when I get into the solution I already wrote. All right. It's in the book. It's right here on my desk. It's called Killing Comfort. But this is what I wrote about, because I know how hard it is for people to get out of these bad spots, just having worked with a lot of people. But you have to make these tiny little decisions. I call it aviate. It's just, we're not worrying about your goals. We're not worrying about like what you're trying to achieve. We're just trying to make a small, good decision every single day. Let's do that for 100 days, and then we can move on from there. And if that gets you somewhere, awesome. Yeah, daily over decades. And that's what you have to do. It has to be mental. If you want long-term results, you have to make hard choices. You can't wire your jaw shut and expect things to work. So this is, I'm a little upset about it. I'm in the health and fitness industry. Sometimes, we see a lot of this information. Sometimes I feel like we're moving in the right direction. And then I always get reminded that in no way, shape, or form is the world moving in the right direction. Our community might be doing awesome. We're doing awesome things. And that's what I like to stay focused on. But we are not beating the obesity epidemic. It's going to break world economic systems. It's going to kill lots of people. Like, it already kills more than coronavirus ever will. Probably on a monthly basis to what coronavirus did, and it's where we don't care about it as much, right? We're not trying to get an obesity vaccine, and we're not doing anything to, and I've talked about this on the podcast before. The main reason being is because you can't cough obesity onto someone. So I can't give you obesity. That's why no one cares about it. I can only give that to myself. And so that's why people take, a viral thing a little bit more seriously, because you can cough it on somebody else. And that's not your choice. But anyway, it's a sad state of affairs. And if you're listening to the podcast, you're most likely not in this situation. If you have a family member who is, or you are in the situation, you have to make the hard choices to get out of it. You don't do this. I'm just telling you, don't do it. You got to make the hard choices to get out of the spot that you're in.
Preach.
Quick question. What do you guys think about we don't have to open up the whole can of worms, but like bariatric surgery versus this? People do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that are we just going with hard choices for everyone? Or do we think that this is a good alternative to something that aggressive?
I have family members who have done this.
Me too.
And what I find is that they may have the surgery and can't eat as much as they normally could, but it doesn't restrict them. Again, not restrict them, but it doesn't help them necessarily eat the right things that they need to eat. And
Yeah.
so, in fact, like because of the surgery, like I know my stepmom couldn't have like leafy greens because it was too intense for her stomach at the time. So, she'd eat like a small potato or, stuff like that. So, certain vegetables were off limits, and I don't know. It definitely helped her, but again, like you still have that, like you can still eat what you want, and I've even seen friends who have done this and, go back to drinking their Dr. Peppers and eating a quarter candy bar. But you know what I mean? Like it doesn't necessarily fix the bad habits. It just is that easy fix at the moment. But then, I've seen people gain the weight right back after paying all that money for that surgery. And so I don't necessarily agree with it.
I feel the exact same way, even with having family members that have done it. It's a temporary fix. It's a patch is what it is, but it's a patch that rips out and causes a bigger issue. It really does. And I, having been overweight for most of my life, have a small inkling of like the mindset that someone would need to be in order to consider something like this. I have a small inkling of that. So I get it. You know what I mean? I get, and that's why I said, I feel sorry for these people. I feel pity for them that they're in such
empathy.
that they're in such a mental state that they would consider something like this. But like, but logic doesn't typically work when you're in a mental state like that. You know what I mean? When you're at that point. I mean, and we're getting pretty deep here, but I have a small inkling of what it would take mentally for somebody to consider this as an option. And so I get it, but I know that it's not the option. And I didn't choose that route, right? I chose the sustainable route, and it did take time, and it was hard. It was difficult. And there were times where I really didn't like it. I wanted to give it away. I wanted to just stop, you know what I mean? And just go back to whatever I was doing. But now there's no chance. And there's no chance I'm going back to that. You know what I mean? And I don't want that for my kids either, and it's just like, it's just sustainable change. It's just the hard thing, the things that are worth doing are the hard things. 9 times out of 10, the thing that is worth doing is the hard choice. And it's not the easy choice. It's the hard choice. And I don't really support the surgery either. I haven't seen it work for somebody long term. Just like what Ashley said, it's like, yeah, well, I can't have the whole candy bar now. I can only have half of it. You know what I mean? It's like, well, the candy is still bad for you. You know what I mean? It's like the surgery is not helping you with that. And this is even worse to me than the surgery. Like, it's just, I can't get there. And I also don't understand how someone could legitimately suggest to another person,
Recommend it. Yeah.
This is a good idea for you. I don't understand how someone could actually invent this device. Like, let's just clamp people's mouths shut. Then they'll lose weight. And it's like, and they think it's a good idea. And that's the mental state that I don't understand. I understand
like
the other
if you
side.
Put a robot in charge of solving the problem, and the robot's like, okay, well, how do you get the calories in? They're like, it's the mouth. They're like, okay, shut the mouth down. It's like, that's such a computer-based robotic answer solution to a problem like I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And they're already doing the marketing for it, right? It's like, oh, it's more affordable than bariatric surgery. It's like, this is a better
Dude, we
option.
just marketed the hell out of it. I know we're kind of anti it, but there are a lot of people who listen to this podcast. I guarantee there might be like at least 5 people who are interested or might reference it to a family member. Like we may have done a little bit of damage there, to be honest. But I agree with you. Like, you have to do the hard work. Emily and I talked about this, or we've talked about it in our finances a lot, because Emily and I were $100,000 in debt, and a lot of that being student loan debt. And people, they're talking about student loan forgiveness and like all these other things. And in no way am I getting political or anything like that. But if you have all of your loans forgiven, you still haven't developed any financial discipline. So would I trade what we had for having just paid monthly payments for this entire time, and then someone forgave my loans? Like, absolutely not. We developed a level of financial discipline that most people are just not capable of. Like, we could right now go to living on a much smaller percentage of our income if we wanted to. And that makes me comfortable, because I know neither one of us are irrational spenders or doing stupid stuff, but we weren't, not that we ever were, but we wouldn't be near as well off as we are now if we hadn't made the hard financial decisions and paid off all this debt and everything. It made us really robust, and we had to make all the hard decisions. So no, I don't care if people get their student loans forgiven, because they're just going to continue to make poor financial decisions over the next, like, oh, that $2,000 a month I was paying towards my student loan, I can just go buy more beer and get a more expensive car. Like, that's the choices people are going to make. And it's no different here. Like, those are the choices you're going to make once that thing gets released or whatever. You're not going to start making all these good decisions because you had someone do something for you. You got to do it yourself. All right. Well, we could talk all day. Let's get into the workout.
Yeah, the workout's backbone. I believe Coach Joe brought this Meet Yourself Saturday workout to the group, so you can thank him for that. So it's 5 rounds of 1,000-meter row with 2 minutes rest after you've done the 1,000-meter row. And then after your 5th round, you get to finish it out with 50 thrusters. Whew. And the RX for men would be 135 and 95 for females, and scale down from there. So like 135, 95, 75 for guys, and then 95, 75, 45 for females. Sorry, how to think about that. All right, tips, tricks, challenges.
So 5,000 meters worth of rowing or running.
And then thrusters.
A couple of 2 minutes rest in there, and then some thrusters. And the thruster part is the backbone part. Right. That's the true backbone part, is like, how do you handle this? And right. I don't think this workout gets enough respect in the Meet Yourself Saturday world, because 1, we haven't programmed it a lot, and 2, I mentioned it to you guys before we started, this one's only as hard as you want it to be. And that can it's either going to be good or bad. Like, if you need to go a little bit slower, you can, but we don't have pacing in there or anything, or, like this should be at 90% or whatever. It's just do it. It's for time. And we'd like to see sustainability and repeatability, but I would just say push yourself is it's not even like, I could talk about sustainability and repeatability and give you times, but I would just say push yourself and not worry as much about the sustainability and repeatability, because I don't consider this a training workout. Like, when you're training, I want you sustainable and repeatable. When you're trying to push yourself, or you're going all out in a competition or something like that, that's when sustainability and repeatability do not matter as much. Like, you will be, if you can sustain and repeat at a higher pace, when you're in some sort of competition and performance thing, that's great. But I would just say push yourself here. I wouldn't empty the tank on the first 1,000, but I would push myself each and every single time to go really hard. And then after those 2 minutes, hit those thrusters, and do have a plan for going in. Are you going to do 10 at a time, 25 at a time, 15 at a time? Like, what is it that you're going to do to end up with 50 barbell thrusters? So that's kind of all I have on that one. It's you determine how hard this one's going to be, more so than any other Meet Yourself Saturday workout we really have.
I would say when it comes to rest period, pick your recovery position of choice. We covered a study that talked about recovery positions way back in the day, back in episode 48. Yes, I went back and tracked it down. Episode 48. And the study proved that hands on knees was a better recovery position than hands on head. And so if you want to find that one, you can search why your coaches were wrong about breathing, because we talked about that. That we were always told to put your hand on your head and not to put your hands on your knees, but it turns out hands on knees is better. So that's what I would say. During your rest period, pick a good recovery method and recover properly so you can go back and go hard on each one.
The only thing I got to say about this is the thrusters at the end are brutal. Coming from a person who thrusters are probably one of my favorite movements to do. I know I'm weird. I love thrusters, but it's brutal. So make sure that you pick the appropriate weight, even if that means an empty barbell. Like, who cares? Like, just pick the correct weight and get that done. Yeah, and I had kind of a similar challenge to Kyle. He talked about recovery position, and I just talked about breathing and just trying to get that heart rate down a little bit and focus that. So that way, when you come back at it, you can do exactly what Jerred said and get right back after that 1,000 meters. And if you have a rower, row. This was meant for you to row, right? That push off with your legs. So that way those thrusters are brutal at the end of the workout, right? So if you can row this one, row, don't run it. But if obviously you don't have a machine, you do you, boo-boo.
Awesome.
Don't look at social media within 30 minutes of.
Yeah, turn that phone off.
I think I'm just going to put that in the Team Builder app, maybe even as one of the elements, like no 30-minute continuous social media use pre-training. But that's it. I think we'll wrap it up here. For everyone who is a part of the community, thank you so much for being a part of the community. You really are awesome. You're making the hard choices. You're killing comfort. You're doing all the things that you should. You just keep doing it. All right. Life is long, hopefully. So just keep making those hard choices over and over and over again. And don't ever let that little tiny baby lion get big and kill you, because it's very hard to fight a lion. That's it. If you're not one of our athletes and you want to make hard choices for decades and do hard things and never have anything handed to you or life be easy, you should sign up to be a Garage Gym athlete. Hopefully I sold it to you pretty well there. So 14-day free trial. You can follow really effective programming. We'll push you mentally, physically, and we'll get you a lot of results in the process. But that's it. And for my weekly reminder, for real, if you don't kill comfort, comfort will kill you. To the Garage Gym Athlete podcast. If you want to learn more, go to garagegymathlete.com. You can learn about our training. Let us send you a copy of our book, The Garage Gym Athlete, or you can even get featured on the Garage Gym Athlete podcast. Thanks for listening.